Hello, folks. Welcome to a special edition of a Paratrooper and a Yogi walk into a bar. And the other fine figure that you can see on your screen is Shana Meyerson, the host of the Yoga at War podcast, which you can find on YouTube.
And there he is, the ally of the if you know, you know. Andrew Fox. He's the co-host of the Brink podcast with Jake. I have to make I still want to call him Jack, and I don't know why, because it's such a not name. Jake Wallace Simons. And that's Mr. Andrew Fox here on Substack and X.
Yeah. So, has anything happened today? That's the big question. How are you feeling? Tired, I'm guessing.
Yeah, everything these days is a yes, but yeah. So there wasn't a lot of sleep that went on last night for sure. I think Trump just stopped talking a couple hours ago, which was like 4 a.m. in LA. I don't know. I sort of wavering in and out a little bit, but I'm somewhere between just completely trashed and absolutely euphoric. It's the day that I don't know that anybody before last week thought would come. I guess before we get into this, Andrew, last week when not the Hamas yes but thing, but the actual like Hamas yes, I actually 100% believed that the hostages were coming home today, the live hostages. Did you, or did you have doubts about that?
Yeah, no, I thought they would. I think the road to this was always through Doha. And Trump did in the last 2 weeks what should have been done 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And that is hammer the Qataris, drag them, pay them whatever needed to get them to put that pressure on Hamas. Obviously, the Turkish and the Egyptians, very important, but Doha was the linchpin of the whole thing. It's hard to know what goes on behind the scenes. I'm guessing it's taken, and Jake made this point earlier, it's taken a good while to get to a point where the Qataris could be malleable, and turn the hostages into basically a strategic liability rather than a strategic asset, which is what they have been through them. They've been an asset for the Muslim Brotherhood alliance for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And Trump finally got to a point where that could turn on its head. And once that happened, I was pretty confident. The only question in the air was whether Hamas could actually deliver all 20, and obviously they did, which is wonderful. So yeah, incredible day today. Incredible, great to see those images of reunification and what we've all been waiting for. And certainly seeing Omri Moran being reunited with his wife was particularly that got a tear or two out of me. That was completely wonderful to see, because I've met her and she's just the most incredible lioness you've ever met. She's been a rock for that family for 2 years, and I don't know how she did it. The strength of the woman was just remarkable, and certainly seeing those two reunited was so special.
I agree. So I can't create a hierarchy, of course, and I know you don't mean to create a hierarchy, but I have to say that the one reunion that really got to me, they all do, like they all do. I just watch them on repeat. Well, you don't have to watch them on repeat; they loop automatically. But honestly, it was Bar Cooperstein. I mean, his father, who got in an accident. It was meant to be paralyzed and unable to talk for life. And in these last 2 years, he it sort of, I hate it, it makes me so sad. It's sort of the exact opposite of what happened with Noah Argamani and her mom, where she came home and her mom, who had held on until her daughter came home and basically died the same day. Bart Cooperstein comes home and his father is miraculously walking and talking. And to me, like that absolutely slayed me. They all slay me for different reasons, but that slayed me because it was a miracle piled on top of a miracle.
Yeah, the whole thing's just been biblical. There's something incredibly symbolic, I think, at a really spiritual level about these people coming from darkness of the tunnels into the light of the love and the huge outpouring of emotion that they received on their arrival, and the way it's kind of euphorically lifted an entire country that's been through 2 years of trauma with them trapped. It's just profound in so many ways. And just before we came live, you made the really good point that there are still dead bodies that need to come home to, and obviously that will be closure for their families in due course, as long as Hamas abide by the deal. So it's still not, the chapter isn't completely closed, but there's only one paragraph to write.
Well,
and yeah, like you say, it's been a long time coming. It needed unlocking, but here we are. Wonderful.
Well, I actually don't want to move on from the live hostages per se, but I do want to go back to the murdered hostages, and I think we need to stop saying dead, died, and deceased,
Yeah,
because
murdered.
let's be honest, they were murdered. Whether they were murdered before captivity or in captivity, each of these people was kidnapped and murdered, and it's an absolute disgrace. But Andrew, when I'm gonna actually flashback to last week or 2 weeks ago. Uh, Trump's plan. So number 4 was the release of all the hostages, but alive and deceased. He doesn't. It says it right there. All hostages alive and deceased. Number 5. Once all hostages are released, Israel will release blah blah blah. Once again, Israel does more. I don't know if you heard, they also withdrew further than the lines that were agreed upon. But so why are we sending home the prisoners? Rumor has it, according to, I think it was Times of Israel, that said only 4 deceased hostages are coming home today. They were supposed to be here 5 hours ago and 13 minutes ago. 5 hours and 13 minutes ago. So 4, okay. And here's the other thing, Andrew. I am loath to call it 28. I am still holding out hope for Beeping and for Nimrodi. And let me tell you why, particularly for Beeping Joshi, I am holding out hope that he is still alive. Did you watch the video that was released last week from November 23 of Beeping Joshi?
No, I didn't see that. No.
Okay, so it's the first proof of life since 10/7. It was only a month later, but it wasn't a normal propaganda video. What it was he's like, I'm Bipin Joshi. I just got to Israel a few days ago. I'm a exchange student from Nepal. I'm just here to study agriculture, and it seemed like Hamas was putting, or whoever it was, I don't know if it was Hamas, PIK, I have no idea, but was putting it out to say, okay, this is why we can save this one guy. He's not a criminal like the B-Boss babies. There was nothing incriminating about this video. And in fact, it would just make the terrorists look like more Hamas holes than they already are if this kid winds up murdered. I am praying in Tamir Nimrodi, no sign of life, but there's also no sign nor claim of death. So I know it might be crazy. I am hoping against all hope that these 2 miracles still walk out of Gaza.
Yeah, that's all we've got at this point. We're just going to have to wait and see what unfolds. It's not where we want to be. Just one comment. Yeah, Walter was saying you didn't think Hamas were damaged enough to agree, and they're not. We're seeing that in the Gaza Strip now. That Hamas still have thousands of fighters and plenty of influence. It's all about Qatar.
Yeah,
it's all about that.
And
it's all about that pressure.
Yeah, they're murdering their opposition in the streets, and even Shabab. Shabab, is that
yeah, Al-Shabaab.
has
Yeah,
silent.
so yeah. Well, look, the bottom line is the militias don't have anywhere near enough numbers to resist Hamas. So the slaughter is going to be pretty much one way, unless you're Mr. Fafo and you get caught in the crossfire. Clearly, R.I.P. that chap, that lovely human being. But yeah, the sort of the way this came about was undeniably it's you could keep turning Hamas fighters into paste, and it wouldn't have had any impact on what actually happened today. The answer to this always sat outside the geographical bounds of the Gaza Strip, and it was Hamas's backers who needed to put the pressure on them. Now, there's a billion ramifications further down the road. Those backers, Turkey, Qatar, have been given some serious, serious concessions by Trump
Yeah.
to get this prize. Those could backfire horribly further down the line, but today's not the day to go into a deep long-term strategic forecast about the possible ramifications of Turkish F-35s and Qatari money flowing back into the Gaza Strip. This is a day about the end of the suffering of those 20 guys who've now found their freedom.
Yeah. And Andrew, let me take a moment to just because you know how I love to humble you in front of the masses. Let me just take a moment to just say how much I and the Jewish community appreciate you and your allyship, and how much you're not just there, but how much you honestly care. And I I actually I guess it's not that weird, but I said it yesterday, and I heard you or Jake say it this morning. But um caring about the hostages and celebrating the hostages is not a Jewish thing, it's a human thing. And we're really finding out this morning, or not even this morning, just this past week, like who is human and who isn't. It's just so funny. Like most of what I write is actually on Facebook, as far as like little pithy comments or whatever. And it's just amazing that even from the Jews from Jihad, I don't, they're not like the real Jews. They just can't be. But everything is a yes, but. Oh yes, it's nice that the hostages came out, but Trump doesn't really care, or but Trump this, but that. It's like, how about this is the most amazing day that nobody thought would happen. And here's the other thing, Andrew, and this is the one bone of contention that you and I have definitely disagreed on over and over again. So we don't have to get into it again. But I do believe that it was either the maximum force or the threat of it that did finally bring Hamas to a point where they were willing to bend. Um, Go ahead, say it. Okay, you already said it. Actually, okay, I know you agree. But it actually doesn't really matter anymore. The fact is that when this maximum pressure campaign was announced, everybody thought, okay, well, and I was worried. Everyone was worried. This is going to be the death of all the hostages, and exactly 0 of the 20 remaining hostages were killed. And I also, I I agree with you and have said,
Great intelligence and targeting. That is something I don't think the IDF have had. And actually, it's a great point to bring up, and you hit a really good spot there. We were all worried about what was going to happen there. Hamas were talking about bringing them to the surface, using them as human shields. But what's happened in response, quite clearly, is that the IDF A had brilliant intelligence as to where they were, and B, brilliant targeting to make sure that they weren't hit and that they weren't caught in the crossfire. So that is a huge result for the IDF. Absolute credit for that.
now, I will never ever say anything to mitigate the credit given to the IDF, but keep in mind also that these were past tense Hamas's bargaining chips, so they actually also did have some some stake in keeping them alive, as they have all along. So there were a lot of factors at play there, but the thing is, Andrew, quite honestly, it wasn't just the naysayers who were afraid that the hostages would be killed. I mean, even the people who were with Bibi, who were executing the plan, it was sort of like, okay, but now we're putting the goal of destroying Hamas ahead of the hostages, and there was an acknowledgement that maybe these two war aims aren't compatible. And I know that this deal has its flaws, and 2,000 of them revealed just in the last few hours.
Hey, did you
Not
did you see the MF did you see the MFA thread they put out?
no.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They've been giving details of the sort of animal that they're having to release as a result of this. It's pretty grim reading. Some of the worst of humanity have been freed to get those hostages back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I've been reading that all along, and it's oh wait, I have to read you an Al Jazeera headline because this was so good. Okay, Al Jazeera headline. Ready? This is a quote. Inhumane. 154 freed Palestinian prisoners forced into exile by Israel. Is that rich or what? Inhumane. So Israel releases prisoners with up to 11 life sentences and wants them off their border. They should be kissing the ground that Israel even let them out. So if we ever wonder about whether Qatar has a decent bone in its body, I guess the answer, Andrew, not that it's a big shocker, is no.
Clearly not. And yeah, I noticed that one of the Qatari royal family was mourning the death of Mr. Fafo, Mr.
Very
Fafo, however you want to pronounce it. He was openly mourning the death of that Hamas propagandist. So that gives you an insight. But actually, while we're on propaganda, there's a really interesting vibe that's been pushed out. I've seen the phrase over and over and over and over and over again. It was Gaza Holocaust. It's being used constantly by these people, and it really, I think the last 2 weeks, the last week maybe, has really masked off the shitbags that have been running this propaganda campaign and all the protests and all the marches. The vocabulary they're using now just shows you who they are. They don't want a ceasefire. They just want Israel destroyed. That's all they've ever really cared about. They don't give a shit about Gazan civilians. They just, all this emoting and chanting, you know, like, guys, you've got the ceasefire. You've been chanting for allegedly this ceasefire for 2 years. There it is. You should be utterly delighted. But they're like, no, actually, what we want is armed force against Israel. Actually, that's what we'd like now, because it was a Holocaust. And it's like this. The inversion, of course, throughout has been completely disgusting constantly, but it's reaching a bit of a crescendo now, a real crescendo of inversion. Like, oh, it's a Holocaust, and it does two things. It first of all sticks up two fingers at Jews, so it's nakedly anti-Semitic. But secondly, I think it is a deliberate attempt to devalue the Holocaust, to remove it of meaning,
Of course.
which then has tremendous knock-on effects for the standing of the state of Israel and the standing of the diaspora. And it's been fascinating as someone with who's taught communications, who's got a master's in psychology, right, focused on this stuff, seeing these patterns emerging. It's a remarkably coordinated global campaign. It really is. Like the scale of the coordination worldwide. We've never seen anything like it in terms of propaganda. I think it's a new threshold, and there's going to be academic papers for years to come about how this has worked and how operated. But all these arseholes posting, oh, I survived the Gaza Holocaust. And look,
Right.
the point is, these really big accounts from Gaza, who are apparently just Gazan civilians, like, these are all Hamas. They wouldn't be allowed to do this in Gaza if it wasn't Hamas kind of authorized or okayed. And like, these are the kind of ground zeros of these narratives. But they just look like arseholes because they're there with their fancy haircuts and their nice watches and their Nike t-shirts, looking well fed. And then you compare it to what people who've actually survived the Holocaust look like, and yeah.
The other
Well, that
aspect,
tells you.
quite honestly, Andrew, about what's going on with the genocide thing it isn't just to mitigate the Holocaust. What it is to say, oh, yes, the Jews, suffered this thing, 80 years ago. Here's what I love also. They're like, who cares what happened 80 years ago? And then they're like, Nakba, Nakba. I'm like, oh, you mean the Nakba that happened 80 years ago? So they're saying that the Holocaust is irrelevant because it's so long ago. But look at the Jews now. They're just as bad as the Nazis, and therefore we get off the moral hook of having perpetrated this horrible thing, we meaning just like global society, because now we're all equal, we're all jerks, we're all genocidists. Let's just put this behind us, and we could just be all together on this same plane. There's nothing Jews are not victims. Let's be honest. Never mind that we are. I mean, we don't wallow in our victimhood. It's just a fact. There's never been a group that's been more victimized since the beginning of written history than the Jewish people. We don't hold it as a point of pride. We hold it as never again, never forget. We need to move on from this. We don't lie in these ashes, but we were burnt into them. And so they're trying to delegitimize. And what's interesting, Andrew, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was yet another weird anti-Israel protest just the other day, like in the middle of the ceasefire and the peace deal, in Britain. Is that accurate, or was somebody recycling an old video just saying like, "Oh, look what these people want"?
Oh yeah, we had a bunch of assholes at the weekend making fools of themselves in London.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the ceasefire now people are silent now that we have a ceasefire in America. We haven't heard a word, not a word from Kamala Harris, for example, from AOC, from Rashida Tlaib. The only person who's said anything about this, because I call it like the crickets heard around the world, is Ilhan Omar, who just took it. She's like, "Oh, well, we have a ceasefire now. Now we can finally um, I don't know the word she used, incriminate or try or hold Israel's feet to the fire for all the war crimes and genocide that they committed in the last 2 years." Like that's the only word that has like come up. But you're absolutely right, and this is not new information to anyone paying attention. This was never about Israel, as we know, because I have to say it once every show. Double standards are anti-Semitic, and this has just been double standard after double standard, exponential, whatever. Oh, okay. Do you know if you take a piece of paper and you fold it in half 50 times, do you know how big that piece of paper will be?
Well,
Uh,
it surely depends on the size of the piece of paper to start with.
no, because the thickness won't change. Like a standard piece of
I,
paper. Just guess. If I take a tiny piece of, okay, it's the size of the world, doesn't matter. I fold it 50 times. How high do you think the stack would be? This is
no
relative.
idea. No idea. Go for it.
Guess. 5 feet, 10 feet, a mile, an inch.
A kilometer.
Okay. Granted, none of us has slept. Okay, ready? You got your seatbelt on? If you fold a piece of paper 50 times, it will go to the moon. And if you fold it 51 times, it will go to the moon and back. My point, Andrew, is exponential growth. And the internet, this is from Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point. And he wrote this really before the internet was a thing. It was a book about influencers and about how, like, for example, Andrew, all our show needs to become the biggest show on earth is to get that influencer, Joe Rogan, who's like, everybody watch this. And then all their friends say, everybody watch that. And all their friends say, everybody watch that. And that's how it works. But that's how this campaign has worked. This is what makes, honestly, very useless idiots useful. It's
Mm.
because they're the ones who are restacking, retweeting, reposting. That's how we got to
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah. The social media era just supercharges it. Like this campaign couldn't have happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have worked on this scale. But our enemies have looked at algorithms. They've looked at our societies. They know exactly how to manipulate the bovine and the stupid, and it's worked really, really well. And then, of course, they've got a whole kind of chumocracy of kind of useful idiots who are willing to put out academic papers in the Lancet to give it credibility, etc., etc., etc. There's that buffoon Hamas speaks, history speaks, whatever his name is. He's been working with the Ministry of Health to define the figures, and they're not Hamas, they're just civil servants. It's like, are you that stupid, or are you deliberately evil? I don't know. Either way, you're a joke. But it's people like that who've really turbocharged this stuff. Somebody asked a question about that just a minute ago. It's probably a good time to answer it. About 55,000 Hamas fighters dying. Yeah, Trump said 58,000 the other day.
58.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Trump was all over the detail there. That is, I would suggest, unlikely.
Yeah.
Um,
It,
the IDF aren't claiming anywhere near that. So I think that's just Mr. Trump pulling a number out of his bum, shall we
yeah.
say,
Well,
rather than anything credible that we can rely on.
which, by the way, is what the other side has been doing all along. But
Of
but
course.
but
But
here's the thing.
the point is we're better than that.
We are better than that. And I suggest that everybody read Andrew's brand new article about a brand new statistic for everyone to start obsessing over. But I don't really want to talk about that per se, except for that it's interesting because now you're bringing up a metric that is totally different than the one metric that the whole world has been so obsessed about. So now we're talking about injuries. And I think that, quite honestly, Andrew, that's one of the most overlooked when we think of. I'm going to say something I hate to say out loud, but everybody knows. There are certain injuries that some people might prefer to have been killed.
Mm.
I don't know how to say that in a socially acceptable manner. But we
Possibly,
need.
but you say that. I've got friends who lost 3 limbs in Afghanistan, and they're living happy
Oh yeah,
lives and stuff.
limbs are not necessarily the thing. I mean, I've seen and met soldiers who are vegetables or who can't
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
and can't.
Mm.
All I'm saying is, like, in the Torah, it actually says like that freeing hostages is one of the most important mitzvot of the Torah because it's a fate worse than death. And I'm just saying that from the physical to the PTSD, the emotional, the psychological wounds, that not just thousands upon thousands of victims of 10/7 and IDF are going to have to live with forever, but there's so many unseen. We had 2 suicides in 1 week, or in 1 day. What am I talking about? This week, of a Nova survivor and of a mother of a Nova of a of somebody who was murdered. Or was it that her son was a Nova survivor and he killed himself and then she killed herself? Whatever it is, like, there's just so many silent killers out there, and the depth of the injuries cannot be understated. That's what Israel, now that the war is over, that's what Israel's really going to have to contend with. Andrew, do you think the war is over?
It's tricky to restart at this point. You think Bibi and Trump are working hand in hand. I think Bibi got dragged over the coals and told what to do. Either way, Mr. Trump has staked his claim to fame to this deal, as it were. I think it's politically very challenging for Israel to restart. Also, like, if you turn around to that Israeli society today that's celebrating this new beginning, this chance to start finally healing as a society, and you tell them, actually, no, back into olive green you go, get back into Gaza. Tough sell, I suggest. The Yeah, I think, you can never say for 100%. I should imagine there'll be airstrikes and drone strikes that will happen in the days and weeks coming, but full scale return to this high intensity combat, I'd be surprised. So, and I think that's the key point. I mentioned the word healing, and I think that is what's needed. And when we talk about PTSD, that's kind of where we need to go as well. Because it's not only, for Israel, it's not only Israelis who are traumatized; it's a traumatized society, and let's be honest, it's a traumatized Gazan society as well. Let's not pretend that there aren't little kids and stuff who are going to have some real, real stuff to get over. Um, and hell, I've met some of them, and I do wonder what happened to the little kids that I met when I was in Gaza. So, a lot of people have a lot of healing to do. Um, and it's going to take a lot of work because Israel's got the Holocaust trauma. It's got 7th of October trauma. It's got the last 2 years trauma. Then people have their own individual traumas within that. Um, that's a hell of a lot of trauma to fix, quite frankly. And this is where I get to give my plug for Orly, because I always do, because she's an angel and I love her. And IsraelHealingInitiative.org is an incredible charity that you should support if you get the chance to. I'm doing a fundraising tour with Orly over here in the UK in November. We're setting up the events for that now. She is a pioneering neuropsychologist who is the daughter herself of a Holocaust survivor. And the treatment she has pioneered, you can actually see PTSD in the brain. It's not just kind of a nebulous thing. You can actually see it in the brain when you scan the brain. And her treatment specifically targets the bits of the brain that are misfiring. And
Wow.
I've had her, and I've experienced her treatments, and it's the most relaxed I've felt in a
Is
long
it
time.
like electrodes or what? It
Yeah,
is.
it's just you put on a little hat. It looks like a 1920s American football helmet almost.
Okay.
But it's got electrodes, and it just gives very, very targeted, essentially brainwaves to reset your brainwaves. So you can see where the brainwave's going mental, and it just fires the correct sort of
Yeah.
brainwave at it. And look, I'm not doing it justice. You can go to
Yeah.
IsraelHealingInitiative.org, and it explains the therapy there.
So
So yeah, but it's people like Orly that are going to be the next generation of great saviors of Israel. The IDF of the current generation, the next generation will be the people who do the healing in the aftermath of war.
is
And it's going to take a lot.
is she in Israel now? I know she lives here in LA. Is she
No,
there?
she's in LA. She's in LA right now. Yeah, she's
Oh,
in LA right now.
okay.
She's plotting her flights as we speak to get here in November.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Is she gonna stay for a long time in like with this healing modality, or is she just going for a minute? Like what is she gonna go there to
yeah. She's been many times since the start of the war already. To not only deliver the training to other psychologists so they can treat people, but also treating people herself. Um, and yeah, it's been a charity labor for her. She's written some brilliant articles as well. If you go to her publishing history in the Jewish Chronicle, she's written some great stuff that explains a lot of the psychology behind what we're seeing on the propaganda side. She's actually done some really good stuff
Oh,
on that.
she's writing about that too. Okay, awesome. Well, Andrew, I know you said you have to go at 7:40 my time, which is now.
Yeah, three three
Uh,
three forty my 3:40 my time, but yeah, thank you.
I do just want to point out really quickly that today is Simchat Torah on the Hebrew calendar. This is very, very relevant. It is the actual day that 10/7 happened, because the Jewish calendar does not line up with the Gregorian calendar.
It's always got to
Um,
be different. Always got to be different.
it's all craziness. But Simchat Torah is considered to be the most joyous day of the year. It literally means like the joy of the Torah. And it, I think that all Jewish holidays always have an element of the bitter and the sweet. And today is supposed to be as sweet can be, but the truth is that forevermore, Simchat Torah will always be bittersweet. Andrew, thank you again so much for just your allyship and for everything that you do for truth. I don't even want to say for Israel, but for truth and morality, because it turns out that is the side that you wind up on, is Israel, when you really draw that line.
We're all just one team. we're all on team. Easy enough, easy enough. And I noticed Azra Nomani just joined, and I'm annoyed because Azra knows Orly incredibly well, so she just missed my 10-minute big up of Orly. But
Uh,
Azra, go back and watch the recording because yeah, Azra's been really important in this fight as well. She's been helping Orly kind of help with the publicity side of things. So Azra is another incredible ally. It's lovely,
well,
lovely to see her name pop up on screen.
thank you, Azra. Everybody, please, if you got something out of this, please share. We're on all the platforms. So you look up a paratrooper and a yogi walk into a bar, anywhere you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, Substack, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all the places. We always appreciate it. And Andrew has something else to say?
One final point. If people want to learn a bit more about PTSD, if you search my archive on Substack, there's a free article in the archive called PTSD. That's all you have to search for. It talks you through my experiences, how it can affect people differently, what sort of treatments and outcomes you can look for. And it also gives some advice on if you have a friend or a colleague who might be suffering, how you could possibly approach that to help them. And likewise, my DMs are always open on X or on Substack. If you have any questions, just ask me. I'm always happy to talk about it.
It's a really, really, really powerful and profound article. And I think that everybody, regardless of whether PTSD is even within like their frame of reference, should read it because we all know people, even if we don't know, we know people who are suffering, and we all need to learn to be there more for each other. So thank you for being there for us, for me, for the world, Andrew. You're a good egg.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise, always a pleasure. And we will see you next time. And I look forward to it as ever. So until then, cheers.
L'chaim. I'll see you next week.